We're joined today by Ray Mountford, Managing Director of Foresta Limited. Ray, thanks for your time.
Thanks, Dave. It's good to be here.
When people talk of resources, they think iron ore, gold, a whole range of other commodities. But today we're talking about pine in New Zealand. Why pine?
That's right. Well, New Zealand is short on what we'd call the mineral resources, natural resources. So what we call a natural resource in New Zealand is things like, was the sheep, the beef, the dairy, and pine. And so traditionally New Zealanders have grown pine on a large scale. We're at 1.7 million hectares of sustainably managed pine down there. And of that, about 66% of the crop each year is exported just as a whole low value, low grade log, and the other 33% is either exported as higher value manufacturing or consumed internally.
So you're using a unique technology to add value to that significant resource.
That's right. We take the pine, instead of just selling it as a log, we're processing it in country. And what we do is we take the valuable chemicals out of it. We take two chemicals, resin, which is, pine is unique amongst all plants in that it actually has vertical and horizontal resin ducts and lots of resin. And so we take the resin out of it and we take the terpenes out of it. And those terpenes and those resins have a $10 billion market worldwide currently, and it's restricted by supply. And they basically replace what are petrochemicals, sources, and things like soaps, fragrances, car tyres, chewing gums, soft drinks, and those sort of things. Road marking paints, ship paints, really high value paints, and then the third thing we do is we make these with the wood once we've washed out these chemicals, and I would point out that we actually use the chemicals of the tree to wash out the chemicals of the tree. So it's a wholly naturally organic process. What we discovered was that there was a terpene, the fragrance part, its function in the pine trees to move the resin around the tree, so it made sense to use it to move the resin out of the tree. So we did that, we patented it, and then we took this, with the spent wood, we actually patented the process of combining the two, so we get these manufacturing efficiencies by combining these two processes to get this third product, which is the drop-in coal replacement, the black wood pellets.
And why is the drop-in coal replacement so important for the New Zealand economy?
Yes, it's really important for the New Zealand economy because the government in the New Zealand's policy for decarbonising is to replace coal. And New Zealand's a small consumer of coal, comparatively worldwide, 2 million tonne a year. But they've actually outlawed coal from 2037. So all of those consumers of coal are looking for a replacement fuel. Now the thing is that you can use gas, but that doesn't decarbonise. You can use other just plain wood pellets. You could use other sources of fuel. But the reason why we went to the drop-in pellets is because they are interchangeable with coal. So it means that the consumer doesn't have to change their actual process, whereby they store coal once they've purchased it. They can store our pellets in the same facility. The conveyancing, the actual feed into the boilers remains the same, and the boilers or burners that are burning the coal remain the same. So they don't have to spend excessive capital. And that's obviously a big problem with decarbonising, is the cost. What is the cost to the consumer? We're bearing that cost and have embedded it in our projects, but in that same thing, by embedding that into the project where we get the black pellets and the chemicals, that's what gives us our competitive advantage. It enables us to produce these black pellets and make really good margins. So we're looking at excess of 30% margins in quite a volatile market, but we have fixed offtake price contracts for 12 years for our black pellets, and we also have floating offtake agreements on the chemicals. We have reason for that is because during this period of time we expect to add further value to those chemicals because our customers are actually demanding us to say, well, hey, we want you to make the chewing gum base, not just make the rosin that gets made the chewing gum base, and it makes a lot of sense to do. When you concentrate a supply and build a supply chain, it makes the sense to actually, get as much value in that supply chain at source. And this is one of the big issues that decarbonising faces. You can have a mine or something somewhere, and they've got to get that raw material from there to the processing facility, and then from there to another processing facility, and so what we're doing is we're compressing all that in one site in Kawerau, New Zealand, and where we'll be able to really build this supply chain and maximise the value from these pine trees.
And where to from here? What's the plan, and what should investors be focusing on over the next 6-12 months?
So we'll see. I'm happy to announce that we've just signed the site at Carrowell, and we're really excited about that. It's a brilliant site. It's right next door to the pulp and paper facility there that's been in existence, processing pine on a large scale for about 70 odd years, I think, 60 years, and so obviously we've got the site there, we've got the contracts for sale, and we've also sourced our supply, which is we have 600,000 hectares of local supply within 100 kilometres of our site. Even the contractors are all contracted to supply the factory, and so from here the next step is to get the rest of the finance to erect the factory. We've got our overseas investment application going in, we've got our consent going in. We expect to see some significant announcements around those in the next few weeks and months, and of course with a very investable project, we expect to be announcing that it's fully financed, and then we're working on other contracts to increase, because New Zealand's got 22 million tonne of logs every year that are exported at low value, and they've been doing that for 50 years. In fact, we're actually replanting in New Zealand and planting at twice the rate we're harvesting. So the resource is growing. So that 22 million tonne of available resource is growing every year. And I think that's what's really sort of sexy about this, where we are, is that, our mines, we don't mine it and it gets smaller. We mine it, we replant it. And if you plant more, it gets more. And so I think, that's really exciting. We're developing other technologies around shorter rotations on the trees, because if you plant 1,200 to the hectare instead of 400, you can harvest at 16 years and get the same volumes, the same return, but the owner's getting them 16 years before, or 15 years before they would have before. Things like that we're doing that are effectively going to change the way, pine, which has been a sort of a static type investment. My family's got a pine forest down there, and they plant it, it's on a second rotation, and they make a little bit of money at the end of it, it's on secondary land, that sort of thing. But turning that more into a primary type of investment, something that everybody wants to be involved in.
Everyone's talking about decarbonisation. You have genuine decarbonisation opportunities. Can you explain those and why they're so important for New Zealand?
Yeah, so I think, decarbonisation is a very political term. We didn't set out to play that game. We didn't set out to greenwash or anything like that. This is my passion. I've been doing it for 25 years in this industry. I was dreaming and trying to make this before it was popular, before it was known about. And decarbonising with us, using the pine is absorbing the carbon out of the atmosphere. And that when we burn the pine to make energy, yes, there is a carbon emission, and then the pine is replanted. We only use what is called FSC certified, which means that pine. That means that the pine is going to be replanted. That's a requirement for supply to us. And to be fair, just about, I think it's like 95% of the pine in New Zealand is actually audited and managed in that way. And there have been some big instances offshore where people have been found out for harvesting native trees, standing forests. We can talk about the Amazon, all those sort of things. But New Zealand, it is truly a sustainable industry. It's the trees are farmed just like we farm our sheep, our beef, and all of that. That's the whole thing, the green image that matters to New Zealand. And so what does that mean? When we burn our wood in a coal-fired plant like the Genesis plant, which is New Zealand's only power-producing plant, they themselves are claiming more than 90% reduction in their greenhouse emissions. So, for instance, and Genesis burn approximately 200 to 300,000 tonne a year of coal. That would decarbonise, replacing that with our black pellets, will decarbonise the entire greenhouse emissions of New Zealand by over 1.5%. I think I've got my math correct. And that's would be a significant step on actual, real decarbonising. And that the 2 million tonne, which is the current amount of coal we burn in New Zealand, by burning that, 2 million tonne as from our renewable plantation resource. By the way, it would only take 6 million tonne of logs to do that out of the 22 million available. That would reduce by over 5% the entire nation's greenhouse emissions. That's our goal.
As you say, everybody wants to be involved. A high quality resource, a sustainable resource, well placed for future expansion and for future opportunities. Exciting times ahead for Foresta and its shareholders. Ray, thanks for your time.
Thanks, David.